Thanks a million. Thanks a lot for coming back after the coffee break. It's always reassuring to see that people haven't left before I come up talking. I'm going to talk to you for the next 20 minutes or so about risk management and the hospitality industry as a fellow operator. I trained in Shannon way back in 1989 and I've done my time in the hotels. I'd worked for about 14, 15 years at the hard edge of the industry in nightclubs. I've managed health and fitness centres, hotels, restaurants, bars, the lot. And I'm currently as well, we run the operation for the only bar operation in University College Dublin. So I'm coming very much as an operator, but just to give you a little bit of background, about 15 years after I graduated, I decided to go back again studying, and I started studying health and safety, various courses, fire safety, etc. So part of our business in Rubikon, we bring our expertise and our experience from the operation, but also we tie it in with the academic and the legislation, and we bring a practical approach to helping operators prevent any issues. So we're very much kind of a proactive approach, whereas the likes of Chris from OSG and Paul from OCF, they tend to deal with things after the event. You know, we would come in beforehand, we would work with operators. It does work, and it's important as well. During my talk, you'll see that a lot of the stuff that I'll be saying, you think I plagiarise it from the other lads, because it's just repetition. A lot of things you're probably doing already, but there's no harm maybe just for a bit of a reminder. So I'm a chartered safety and health practitioner and various courses I did. And as I said, we're in the operation, we operate bars as well, but also we carry out risk surveys for insurance companies. So we will come in, work with the likes of you guys, general managers, we'd sit down, see what systems you have in place and what you can do to prevent things. A lot of people, they think, oh, health and safety, and I always say, once I mention I would do health and safety, you see people's eyes glazing over and kind of falling asleep. We all know there's more interesting things than health and safety. But as once a guy in one of a big supermarket in Dublin said to me, he said, Alan, listen, I know I have to do it, but that's not my job. My job is selling bread and pints of milk. That's my business I want to concentrate on. I want you to do this for me and manage the health and safety for me. So really that's where we would come in. But with health and safety, what's so important is that research has shown that companies that pay as much attention to health and safety and risk management as every other part of their business, so human resources, financial management, etc., they are they're amongst the best performing of the businesses in the industry. It's not just because concentrating on health and safety is good in itself, which it is, but it's just it shows it's a reflection on the way that the business is managed, that all aspects are managed professionally, and research has shown that they're more profitable. So really, with risk management, we all know it helps reduce exposure, it helps operators have less claims. It can have a positive influence on premium and excesses. One of the very first hotels that we went into about 4 years ago, their premium was 100,000. They enrolled us in a program throughout the year, and it dropped by about 40%. So they ended up paying in the region of 60,000. So it can have positive financial effects. Also, we've seen, for example, some of the high-risk nightclubs that would engage us, that they might necessarily have increases in their premium, but certainly they're not as great. You still have an increase, but not as large. And also maybe there's excesses might be less. So instead of 15, 20,000 excess, it might be down to 5. So by showing that you're serious about fire risk, health and safety, it's important, and that's what the underwriters look for. A big thing as well, we all know, what we all dread when the solicitor's letter comes in and you see it's from somebody that was in your hotel or your premises, 1 year, 11 and a half months ago, and you have the letter of somebody, oh my God, what's this about? Who was working? Who was on duty? We don't know who dealt with the incident. Was it in the toilet? We don't know who the manager on duty was. We're going through payroll records to see who was on, etc., etc. So we all know, it's a pain having to deal with these issues on a practical basis when you want to be dealing with organising your business on a day-to-day. So by preventing these claims, etc., incidents, it frees up your time. And at the end of the day, it saves you money. Nobody wants to be paying out excesses straight away. That comes, you're writing checks. and also it's reflected in your premiums in future years. So when I go out to hotels, nightclubs, whatever, what I would look for, what I would bring as I'm walking around would be case law. No, I'm not a solicitor, but you'd read the papers, you hear about the various cases and the payouts that happened, and you'd kind of learn the way that the judges would think. So we try and apply that. Industry experience, as I said, 15, 16 years dealing with people in the nightclubs. I've worked in a nightclub that had, there's 2 nightclubs together, and there's about 3,000 people, full maximum occupancy. So you'd actually see a lot of things happening. Claims handling will be a big thing. Now, the way that the claim is handled would have a big impact as well. Because as an individual, we all know ourselves. If we have an issue, if it's a complaint, even if it's somebody, a guest complains, the way it's handled can really determine, what happens after that. Academic knowledge as well, we bring that to it. So quite often, as I said before, a lot of the stuff people know in business, yeah, I should be doing it, but I don't really know, and I don't want to. Oh God, the fire officer's coming, what do I have to do for him, etc. And it's a last minute thing in September, oh God, I need to get the records ready. So that's what we would come in, we would advise, we would be proactive and say, guys, this is what you need to do. I have at the bottom there requirements and recommendations. These are 2 important words which quite often operators don't really understand the difference. And typically when we would issue a report, the recommendations are something that you don't have to follow, but it's kind of best practice. It would be good if you did X, Y, and Z, it would help you. But whereas requirements, we would break down into legal requirements and risk requirements. So a legal requirement, fire escape must be kept, unblocked and easy access. A risk requirement might be something like you have to have a carbon monoxide alarm in a fuel burning room. The legislation doesn't say you have to yet, but it's due to change. So they would be 2 big differences that people don't necessarily realise. So if you get a report in from a surveyor, requirements need to be done, whereas recommendations, not necessarily, it's not obligatory. So what Jonathan was talking about earlier on, some of the things that we would see, again, slips, trips and falls will be a huge thing. And as I mentioned, poor incident management can inflame the situation. We all know if claims aren't dealt with properly and with empathy at the very start, that's assuming they can kind of run out of control. And as well, I think Jonathan alluded to their manual handling injuries. Not many people know, but by law, any workplace accident where your employee is out of work for 3 or more days must be reported to the HSA. So they have to know. Now, I know when we were in the business and we'd have people might have hurt their backs or whatever, or maybe security got injured in a fight and were out of work, we were very kind of reluctant to let them know. But when we did it 2 or 3 times, they don't come back to you in our instances because they've bigger fry, bigger catch to fry or fry to catch, whatever the expression is. They've more to be dealing with. They haven't got the resources. But manual handling will be a big one. And part of these, as I mentioned, when you have to record or report any incidents or accidents in the workplace that are more than 3 days, the HSA, they compile statistics. And year in, year out, statistics show that approximately 1/3 of all reportable accidents are down to manual handling. And I know I go into hoteliers and I'd say, do you have your manual handling records? And I say, oh, geez, yeah, no, not really. I do sometimes. We do it once a year. By law, every employee must be trained in manual handling. And it's a huge exposure if your employees aren't trained in manual handling. And as was shown by Dunstores had a case recently. This is just the pie chart that the HSA put together. But Dunstores had to pay $85,000 to an ex-employee. So the High Court said, no, must compensate this former worker for a lower back injury. And just very briefly, what the judge said, he said that the person had received adequate training in respect of the duties of her employment. So she hadn't actually. So the judge said a demonstration with a box of A4 paper was not remotely comparable to the lifting exercise the worker had to do in the course of her work. So in other words, you can all imagine the HR manager or the departmental manager was there. Here's your staff handbook, here's this for your uniform, sign that, do this, there's a box, pick it up there, next please. You can imagine something along those lines happening. So the judge said no proper follow-up to the training occurred. If there had been, the supermarket would have known that the worker was using an incorrect and dangerous method of lifting. In essence, what happened, this woman was trained, Maria, to lift up a cardboard box, an empty box in an office, where in fact what she did on a day-to-day was in the warehouse or the shelvings, taking empty suitcases down off high shelving and putting it into shelves. and she suffered a back injury. So you can see there's no correlation between emptying an empty box and suitcases. And this is, in the end, he awarded 85,000, 60,000 for past pain, 20,000 for future, and another 5 grand for agreed specials, whatever that might be. So when you are carrying out your training or making sure it's carried out, you need to make sure that it's relevant. So for the likes of housekeepers, again, lifting beds, pushing trolleys, kegs, you see young lads, 17, 18, trying to show that they're, grown, strong men, and just the bodies aren't able for it. Stacking kegs. Pools is another one. Sometimes some pools have hoists for disabled people, and the leisure attendants have to lift or help lift the people from a wheelchair, for example, onto the hoist. Again, that's manual handling. It's actually people handling, which is another course. So just be aware that whatever manual handling is carried out, that is actually relevant. Slips, trips and falls, again, go back to Dunn's. This woman here, she was awarded 70 grand, went to appeal. Total damages was just under 204,000. Again, it's by not having these procedures in place. Slips, trips and falls is a huge one as well. So what I would suggest today is that we would always tell our clients, unless it's written, it didn't happen. So if you're in front of the judge, and that's the way you have to think, unless you're in front of the judge, which you're up against the plaintiff's barrister, if you don't have that bit of paper with the signatures, it might as well not have happened. So you need to be able to prove that training happened, and not just once every so often. For example, slipping in the bath, person in the kitchen, ice in your car parks, etc. On the dance floor is a huge one, are people falling into pools, so you need to show. Just on the one there, the waitress, we dealt with a hotel where they had 2 slips in the kitchen within about a month or 2 of each other, and quite serious. One was a woman in her 60s had fallen, another was a young woman, 19 or 20. And obviously, because of the older woman's age, etc., it was far more serious, she couldn't work. But the fact that the insurance company, I know for a fact, were very concerned that the fact 2 slips, incidents had happened, was in such close succession to each other. And this is a huge thing. If something is foreseeable and you don't do anything about it, you can expect to pay for it. Dealing with incidents, we would always recommend to our clients, have your SOPs in place. And no more than having safety statements, quite often we would see SOPs, the odd place that might have it, and it tends to be the bigger places. They have a lovely, pristine book with all the SOPs, which are standard operating procedures, and it's, untouched. And I always tell people, the safety statement, it's a working document. It's like the SOPs. You need to have it out there. You need to communicate it. It needs to be thumbed through, like a good cookbook, that it's used. You need to be able to show that your employees are aware of it and know what to do. And SOPs will help you do that. You need to be able to prove that your staff are trained on what to do in an incident. Okay, so if somebody slips, what do you do? Like the example there in Tesco, where the guy came and put the basket over the spill. You need to be able to show. And that comes into things like breakages and spillages policies. You need to show that. So when a member of staff starts, that you can show, no, yeah, we train them, this is what is involved. And I always say, any of these SOPs, any systems, they need to be nice and short. We're all busy, we have an operation to run. Maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs, cover the main points that are site-specific. For example, safety statements. I go into hotels and I look at the safety statement, and you can see straight away there's something that cobbled together before I've come in. And it has reference to Kangos and consaws and things like that, and nothing to do with catering equipment. So it needs to be site-specific. Empathy is a huge one. When you're dealing with somebody, they might turn around and sue you, but they're definitely going to be more inclined to, take a case if you're not empathetic. CCTV and headcams we always found extremely useful. Now, I know hotels are slightly different from nightclubs, but any incidents, fights, first aid, headcams are a great way of actually getting up close. CCTVs, the insurance company, and we would always say in high-risk areas, so for example, maybe a function, dance floor, nightclub, you'd have a ratio of 1 camera for every 30 people. That's no high-risk areas. Just on CCTVs as well, the insurance company as well would look for at least 90 days, so keep your footage for 90 days. Report forms, really, really important. With the report forms, quite often people, they'd have like maybe a first aid book which isn't really used, or a bit of a diary down the back. And The advantage of having a report form that's standardised is that it prompts the person. We all know you have a busy night, it's 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, it's starting to wind down, people are going home. Your security, your bar staff, whatever, they just want to get out of there, want to go home. But in fact, that's the most important time, to get them to sit down. I know myself, some nights you could do 5 or 6 first aids, and you were thinking, what was the first person, was that her left foot or her right foot? Or did that fella, it does get blurred. So it's very important, have the standardised forms and let people know how to fill it. And then the manager needs to check it. If it's not filled out correctly, it's sent back. And we would always tell people, write down what you see. Don't make it up. You need to write down, if you're in the box and you're being questioned by the barrister, you need to be 100% sure. Now is not the time to put down porkies just to protect your friends or your colleagues. You need to inform the insurance company. They need to know. There's no point coming 2 years down the line, oh, by the way, this happened. They wouldn't look on that favourably. And liability and negligence. I would always say to people, at the end of the day, the facts are that if it goes to court, you probably would be found liable. But what you want to prevent is being found negligent. In other words, you knew something was there. Someone had slipped, someone had fallen, and you did nothing about it. So you have to do everything reasonably practical. So just some practical claims preventative actions. Training is a huge one. Again, health and safety training up to date. Now, what we used to do, we had quite a high turnover during the height of the boom. We would have maybe the first whatever day of the month at a certain time, all of the HUDs would know, and they would send the staff to be trained at that time. And we would allocate a certain amount of time. It might be 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever. But we would carry out health and safety training, dealing with safety statement. Because by law, you need to communicate the safety statement to all employees. If you employ 3 or more people, you need to have a safety statement. It needs to be site-specific, and it needs to be up-to-date with the risk assessments. So you go through the risk assessments maybe once a year. And I'd be talking to the managers, and they'd say, oh, geez, but I'm busy, I'm doing X, I'm doing Y, I'm doing Z. What I would recommend is that get a safety committee in place. So one person, and again, coming from my operations background, you kind of choose the person you want. This isn't a union, you don't want any troublemakers. You want somebody that will work with you and that the staff like and trust. They will come together, communicate any information, and it's acted upon. And if the safety reps are on board, they will actually do a lot of the work for you. Responsible service of alcohol training is a big one. The judge will say, okay, the person says you served them too much, were your staff trained? Toolbox talks is something taken from the construction industry. Really what it is, it's kind of like an informal training session, but again, it might be the wedding is set up, you're just before the bride and the groom and all the guests come. You might have the banqueting staff there, you might have 20, 30 of them, whatever. Gather them all together. Right, lads, now I'm going to train you how to do X, Y, and Z. It doesn't have to be health and safety related, it could be operational. But what we do, you get your piece of paper, you write down the training topic, you explain it to them, the 4 points that you've covered, get them all to sign as you're talking. It's informal, you put it away, it doesn't have to be typed up or anything, it's written, put it away and you have proof that you've done something. Might be how do you deal with the breakage and spillages, toilet checks, what you do if you see an incident, etc., etc. So it can be an informal thing. So toolbox talks would be very helpful. SOPs in place, like breakages and spillages. Reviewing first aid forms is a good way to give you an idea. If you can keep seeing that somebody keeps tripping over or whatever, carpet in a function room or there's a step onto a dance floor, it can highlight areas that need to be tackled. Stairs and handrails, very important. Stairs, what we would look for, that they're well lit. With the regulations, all new stairs, with the very top one and the bottom one, need to be different colour, different texture, so people know. This is all basic stuff we know, but this is the stuff, when it isn't in place, it comes back. And I know of a nightclub that had, the seats and the tables high, the high step, and then you kind of step down. That was found that it was, it wasn't complying with the regulations. So again, it's all got to do with technical guidance document. K would deal with stairs and things. M would deal with access for disabilities, etc. Paper trail, make sure it's there. And you need to put in systems to prevent occurrences. So you sit down your Monday morning, whatever, you see what's happened over the weekend. Right, what can we do to prevent it? Some other preventative measures. I mentioned CCTV ratios, staff training. Fire search is a big one. I remember once doing a survey in a hotel, and the hotelier was thrilled. Look at all my lovely rooms, 20-room extension. And I said, oh, right, and do you have a fire cert? Huh? No, the fire officer never comes. I said, it doesn't work that way. All you need is something to happen. The insurance company find out that you're not compliant, and then you're in for trouble. So fire search is a huge thing. Also, by applying for them up front, I mean, Paul would know more about this than I would, but I think it's something like 290 square metre when you're going through the licensing. But if you have to do it retrospectively, I think it's about 3 times the price, 4 times the price. So it's financially advantageous to do it. And again, what we would do when we do the surveys, we would go around with technical guidance document B, which is fire safety. We would have that in mind, between access routes, etc. And we would advise hoteliers, nightclubs, etc. on what they need to do for the licensing. Effective maintenance reporting systems. It's important you have a system. Now, so I know some hotels have maybe an opera system or whatever that the housekeepers ring down, it's documented. That's fabulous, but it doesn't have to be as highfalutin as that. It might be just an A5 diary behind a till in a bar, or something whereby people can just ring and say, listen, will you put this in the book? The toilet is broken here, the door is there, there's a tile up there, and then the maintenance person will come around on the Monday or whatever and deal with it. So again, it's a safe system of work that you can show, no, this is our procedure in place. It's reported during the night or at the end of the night. I know what we would do, we would get our supervisors, it's their job to actually go around and ask people, right guys, have you anything to report in this? Because nobody wants to get to the next week and there's a glass washer that's broken and no, you didn't know about it. So it helps with the operation as well. Just follow-up procedures, loss adjusters, loss assessors. Book of Quantum is a big one with injuriesboard.ie. People hear it, they're not quite sure what it is. But really, I suppose, as Jonathan was saying, just you need to remember that at the end of the day, when you pay your premium, the insurance company owns the case. They can decide what to do with it. If they want to settle, they'll do it. They have that right. So I'm just going to give you a case study here, fictitious case study. Actually, I remember seeing this once in a toilet in a nightclub years ago. A woman fell and she did actually lose a full tooth. So this person here, broken tooth, this is the new Book of Quantum that's out. And the Book of Quantum was put together to try and keep the lawyers out of the whole insurance gig, so to speak, to try to keep costs down. So typically for a broken tooth, between 7,500 and roughly 10,500. So that's the typical payout. If I lost my tooth in your hotel, that's what I could expect by going direct. That's what you could expect to pay out. Now, quite often you'll have some people and they go to the solicitor and they'll say, the solicitor thinking of their fees, hang on now, I'll get some money out of this. And I've seen cases whereby the solicitor goes through the whole process, the client still only gets the 10.5 grand, but the solicitor has got his fees. So say for example here, now they're only just estimated prices, so don't take it too, just take it on the face of it. So the claimant is on the left, insurance company on the right. So we'll say the event occurs, I get a broken tooth. So we'll go to the dentist, initial treatment maybe €200. Maybe someone's out of work for 2 weeks, so that's €500 a week, that's €1,000 gone. Maybe more dental fees, 2.5 grand. Right, so then we let the hotel know, the insurance company is then put on notice. So the claimant, so I'm going to go to my lawyer and say, listen, what am I going to do here? I need to be sorted, I'm out of work, I'm getting dental fees. So maybe for an hour it might cost me another €350. So you can see the way the costs are racking up. So we go back onto the insurance company, they want to be preventative and say, right, what are we going to do? So they'll get in touch with their medical team, the engineer, maybe witnesses, experts, etc. So we'll just say 2.5 grand, pretty conservative. So it goes back to me, get my lawyer, get my senior counsel, prepares a case, that's 2.5 grand. The insurance company gets their senior counsel, case preparation, 2.5 grand. I go to court, again I'm paying for the guys to go to court, another 4 grand for the day. The insurance company has their 4,000 as well for their legal team. So at the end of the day, the judgment in favour of the claimant, because I'm going to win, I've lost my tooth, the floor was wet, was about 10,500 here. Okay, so that's the costs, just the costs. I haven't got any, damages. Go back to the insurance company, so they're still, the costs are clocking up the whole time. The insurance pays the award. We'd say the judge says, no, you need to give Alan Connolly 40,000. They pay the cost of the claimant. So the total cost of the insurance company is the 49,000 plus the plaintiff's costs of 10.5. So you're looking at in the region of 60 grand. So you can see why it's it's a figures game. The insurance company in their head they think 10.5 grand. You might think sure, it's only two. No, 2 grand, make it go away. That's what the insurance company are thinking. 60 grand, that's not going to happen. We're going to make this go away now with a 10 grand check. So what I would suggest is don't ever ignore any legal correspondence. Always let the insurance company know as soon as possible. And what's very important, the safety statement. Again, people think, oh, geez, why this again? But I'm sure, as you know, when you get the solicitor's letter on your desk from a plaintiff that something has happened, you know the way that they always call on you to admit full liability, et cetera, within 7 days. And they give you a big list of all the stuff they want. And typically at the top of it is the safety statement. And if you don't have your safety statement there up to date, so straight away, yeah, great, so that's one bad point against you. And they're trying to build a case that you're inexperienced, you're unprofessional, you're unsafe. Occupational first aid reports, incident reports, CCTV footage, it's downloaded, it's burnt, it's whatever, it's kept. Witness details is a huge thing. Also from staff, and maybe from individuals that are in the area that saw something happening. Listen, did you see something? Yeah. Do you mind giving me your name and your number just in case I need to follow it up? And quite often people will do it. Particularly, I know from giving first aid to people, they'd have their friends with them because you'd have a companion and you'd be chatting away. One of us would do first aid and then the other person is getting questions with the formal report form and asking, oh yeah, do you mind, what's your name? And because they're so hyped up in the moment, they've no problem giving it to you. And it's good to have that as a witness. Photographic evidence, if possible. I know what we used to do, we would say, listen, do you want the cut in the back of your head? Do you want to see it? Yeah. Well, take a photo and show you. So you're asking permission, you show it to them. Yeah, there you are, they can see it. You'd have it on the CCTV anyway. We would have a first aid room and you'd have a CCTV camera in the first aid room showing what we're doing. Some sample claims, nightclubs and security staff. We've seen security bringing people out perfectly till they get to the front door, then they get the person like the Wild West and fire them out in the road and get hit by a car. Strips, falls, wet floors, kitchens, pool decks, car parks, ice, dripping porch roofs coming down, no toilet check sheets. You wouldn't believe it in this day and age. We ask people, do you have toilet check sheets? Yeah, somewhere. Or they might say, well, we have it, but there's no point because the people rip them down, they throw them away. If that happens, you just put it on a clipboard in a cleaning cupboard, or you put it behind a bar somewhere. It's so important. You need to be able to show that you're carrying out, due diligence. You're showing that you're keeping an eye on the toilets. The famous Pat McDonough case with the lads throwing the water on the ground. Just another thing as well with the toilet check sheets. Quite often you'll see them and they'll have the time, for example, 11:15, 11:30, 11:45, 12, the whole way down. There's a barrister we know that he actually disproved the case, and he said to the member of staff, okay, you signed it at 11:30, yeah, okay. And how do you know it was 11:30? Did you have an alarm on your phone? Did you clock in, or how did it work? So it could have been 11:28, it could have been 11:33.